our dear co-chairperson for Florida Eastern U.S. Global Summit, Historic Global Summit, Maria Olsen, speaking under the category of health and wellness. And just because we choose a category doesn't mean we have to stay only within that category, of course. Yes. And the title of her speech, Reframing the Next Chapter of Your Life. Maria, please.
Thank you so much, Rosalind and Gertrude. I too am basing part of my talk on a book that I wrote, my last book, which is 50 After 50, Reframing the Next Chapter of Your Life. And what it is about, it is a very self-revelatory account, the first third of it, of how the universe conspired to force me to change everything about my life at age 50. At age 50, I got divorced. I got sober from alcoholism. I was living alone for the first time in my life, and I became an empty nester. So, as anyone who knows anything about alcoholism, once you get sober, you are asked to change everything about your life, the people, places, and things that triggered you to turn to alcohol in the first place. So I was turning 50 years old and I just wanted to crawl into a hole and hide. But people asked me what I was doing for my 50th birthday, and I decided to take the opportunity to try 50 new things in my 50th year to explore the contours of how I wanted to live the next chapter of my life. Those things spanned many different categories like travel and adventure, social activities, learning and teaching, spiritual endeavors, physical challenges, well-being, thrill-seeking, and lifestyle changes. And each of them taught me something critical about how I wanted to live my next chapter. Not everything I did is something I would like to do again, but each of them challenged me and helped me to stretch my comfort zone and figure out what my values truly were, because I felt like for the first 50 years of my life that I was living in the way that I felt I was expected to, that I was putting all my eggs in the motherhood basket, for instance, that I felt like I lacked for many things in my childhood, growing up in a broken home, growing up in a home where my father was an alcoholic, where I lived mostly with my father, who got custody in the 1960s in the US, I believe because he was white and he was trying to have my mother deported to her home country, which is the Philippines. In fact, many people, including my children, are surprised to learn that when my parents got married in 1962, it was illegal in the state of Maryland. In fact, it was illegal in 16 states for interracial marriage. My mother is Asian, my father is Caucasian. And they cannot believe that was the case. And that was only a generation ago. Likewise, I believe my son, who is gay, if he chooses to have kids and tells his kids that same-sex marriage was illegal in the US until 2013, they won't believe it either. Things are changing so rapidly, and I believe for the better in that regard. So the first thing that I did was I put most of my things into storage and I traveled to the other side of the world. I traveled to Nepal. I lived high in the Himalayas in a small village that had no running water and no electricity. And I volunteered in a school there and I helped to build a small library. And what that became for me was an exercise in cultivating gratitude for all the things I took for granted. Just by virtue of living in the United States, I will likely always have access to clean water, for instance, and to medical care. When I got back to the US after that time, I found I was in a casual restaurant in the ladies' room, And I was marveling at how good it smelled and how clean everything was and how there were paper towels and warm water. And I was saying these things out loud. The bathroom quickly emptied as people thought there was a crazy woman in the bathroom talking about how good it smelled. So I no longer take certain things for granted. I don't take for granted that I can see, I can walk, I can hear small things that if you lose any one of those things, you certainly will not take them for granted anymore. And yet I was living my life to a large extent on autopilot, taking for granted the many, many blessings I had. So that set the stage for my year of magical doing in my 50th year. Another category was social activities. I was married to the same man for 25 years, and here I was on the dating scene. The chapter in my book is called Dating for Dowagers. It is very strange to date after 25 years with the same person. And I did not like my experiences with online dating, but I did have good experiences with speed dating. It's something where the woman sits at a table and the men have 5 minutes to wow them with their conversation. I feel like face to face, I had a better gauge of who I wanted to spend my time with. But it was a hilarious venture and turned out not to be how I met my significant other, but it was fun nonetheless. Learning and teaching, there's so much with the internet being so pervasive that we can all learn. And I believe we all have something worthy of teaching other people. But for instance, did you know that you can take Ivy League classes for free online? Most people don't know that, but it's true. There's a very good class about happiness, for instance, taught by a professor at Yale University. That's excellent. Physical challenges. I started a yoga practice or built my yoga practice, and yoga I find to be not only physically demanding and helpful, but also mentally a wonderful exercise in meditation for me, and meditation in movement, as well as certain poses be engaging the mental energy in the mind in a meditative state. Spiritual endeavors, I joined a different kind of faith community, and I also went on many women's retreats. There's something for me about being in a sisterhood of women, even for a weekend, that elevates my thinking, it elevates my confidence, and I learn so much from other women. There are women's conferences and retreats in abundance, online and in person. And I just love it. There's one in particular called Women of the Wild that I so enjoy. And we spend a lot of time in nature, and nature just enhancing every aspect of my spirituality. I also engage in walking meditation quite frequently. I find that when I walk, I discover so much more that I don't notice when I'm speeding by in my car. I've found, for instance, in my neighborhood, 2 labyrinths in church gardens that I passed hundreds of times and never noticed. And I love walking in labyrinths, which I believe originated by monks in monasteries when they would walk in contemplation in, it looks like a maze, but there's only one way to go. And it's beautifully, beautifully done in most cases. Thrill-seeking ventures. I, who am not even 5 feet tall, got a motorcycle and my motorcycle license at age 50. I marched myself into a Harley Davidson dealership, and I took a class with a group of big, burly, tattooed men who looked at me with such derision. "What are you doing here?" their eyes said. But I passed with flying colors, and I bought myself a small motorcycle to start with. And I just got a sidecar actually for my dog to ride with me. And I love it. It is dangerous. And I have told my children when they turn 50, I would support them getting a motorcycle as well, but not before then, because it is dangerous, but it feels so good. It feels like wind therapy to me. It feels like, the wind in your hair. You're at one with nature. You see so many more things like animals and clouds. And it's just a wonderfully spiritual and thrilling adventure for me every time I go on a motorcycle. I also tried indoor skydiving as a step to outdoor skydiving. I'm not quite ready for the outdoor skydiving, but I believe I will do it in my lifetime. Indoor skydiving is more like being in a wind tunnel and you're sort of flying. It feels like you're flying because the wind brings you probably 20 feet off the ground, and it's exhilarating. It's a really fun thing that's growing in the United States, at least, as kind of a thrill-seeking venture. Lifestyle changes were probably of biggest impact, perhaps, in my life. Included, I embraced my own brand of minimalism. For every one thing I brought into my home, I got rid of two things. I don't want to burden my children with having to get rid of all my stuff when I pass on. And it's all stuff. And the fewer things that I have in my life, the easier my life becomes. It's easier to keep track of things. It's easier to keep things tidy and organized and clean. I don't need things anymore. In fact, I tell my significant other and my children, I don't want any more things as gifts. I would rather have a card from my children with something handwritten in it about how they feel about me. No, but yes, I do have an ego. But for my significant other, I would rather have an experience, anything. Going to a concert, taking a walk, even better if he plans a trip for us. How lovely. We do something called, I instituted something called date night, where I don't tell him where we're going, what we're doing. I just tell him what to wear. And then I'll plan something unusual that we've never done before. For his recent 60th birthday, I planned a zip lining adventure. And it was so much fun. We were by far the oldest people in the adventure park. And it was just exhilarating and hilarious and a little scary. We were high above the ground. There was a lot of rope course work involved and walking on tight wires. And it was scary, but and physically demanding, but it felt really fun and novel. And how wonderful that we can still use our bodies in that way. So that was wonderful. Another major thing in the lifestyle changes department was that I learned how to say no. I am a recovering people pleaser. And now when someone asks me to do something, more often than not, I will say, let me think about it. Or if my answer is no, I'll say, no, I have another commitment. And I don't have to tell you what that commitment is, because that commitment can be simply to put my feet up and to replenish my energy. Because one of the biggest takeaways from this year of magical doing is that no one is responsible for my happiness except for me. No one. And my happiness and well-being includes only doing things that bring me closer to the person I want to be, that help me to be the best version of myself that I can be, that don't deplete my energy unnecessarily. I do not owe other people an explanation for that. I owe myself the right to be the best version that I can be. And like Joan, my mission on this earth is to turn my pain into a force for good. And it is to make this world better because I was here. We can all bloom where we are planted. We can all make one person's life better. We can all deliver a smile or check in on that one person who is alone or lonely. We can talk, share words of encouragement to one other person. We all have the power to make this world a better place. And it doesn't have to be on a grand scale, because for instance, to that one person, doing an act of kindness It can seem very little to you, but to that other person, you may be the biggest thing that has happened to that person in that day, that month, even that year. You don't know, because we cannot know what is going on in another person's life. We are all an amalgam of a multitude of experiences that we will never know happened in another person's life. That realization of not taking things personally because I cannot know another person's reality has saved me so much grief. If someone cuts me off in traffic, it no longer even bothers me. Maybe that person got a bad diagnosis or some other kind of bad news. It doesn't matter. And my life has become so much better because of that one realization. I know I am at the end of my 15 minutes, but I want to leave you with one last thing. Many of us guard our money with more vigilance than we guard our time. Yet time is the one thing none of us can get back. It is of uncertain duration. You cannot buy it. And if you waste it, that's on you, because it is worth more than anything else in your life. So guard your time. Spend your time with people who help you to be your best version. Only choose the things that are in alignment with your values. Your time is important, and you owe it to yourself to make the most of your life that you can. So reclaim your power and let your choices reflect your hope, not your fear. Thank you, sisters, for having me in this enormously wonderful group of women. Namaste.
Namaste.